My son set $45 million on fire and smiled at me while it burned. He thought he was taking my future and turning it to ash. He thought he'd won. He had no idea I'd already won the war before he even struck the match. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in Australia, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't forget to like and join the family. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. People see you calm at a funeral and they think you're weak. They see you quiet and think you're broken. But silence is where the real plans are made. Calm is what you wear when you already know how the story ends. My name is Elaine. For 34 years, I was Richard Caldwell's wife. We lived the American dream in a 6-bedroom brick house in Highland Park, Texas. You know the type. Big iron gates, manicured lawns, cars in the driveway that cost more than my first house. From the street, we were perfect. Inside, it was so quiet I could hear my own heart breaking. Richard built a tech empire. I built a life around his empty chair. We had 2 kids. Michael came first. He was his father's son, loud, hungry, always needing the spotlight. Then came Emma, my quiet girl, the one who saw everything. For years, I played my part, the supportive wife, the gracious hostess, the smiling mother in the perfect family photo. I made sure the wine was poured, the dinner was hot, and the cracks in our foundation didn't show. But I saw them. I saw the way Richard started taking phone calls behind locked doors. I heard his voice drop to a whisper. I saw Michael watching him, learning all the wrong lessons. The first real clue was Thanksgiving. Michael didn't come home. He said he had a last-minute meeting in New York, too important to skip. I told him we'd keep a plate warm. He said, "Don't bother." That night, as I wrapped leftovers in saran wrap, Emma leaned against the fridge. "Is it just me?" she asked softly. "Does Michael never make time for us anymore?" I shrugged. "He's busy, honey, that's all." But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Something was shifting. The air in our beautiful house was getting thin. And then I heard them. I picked up the landline in the kitchen by mistake, and I heard Michael's voice already on the line with his father. "She won't see it coming," Michael said. And Richard, my husband, replied, "She doesn't need to." Click. I stood there, the phone cold and heavy in my hand. She. They didn't say my name. They didn't have to. That was the moment the fog lifted. I wasn't just being left out, folks. I was being planned out. They were moving pieces on a board, and my square was about to be cleared. But they forgot one thing. When you've been silent for 30 years, you learn to listen. And when you finally decide to move, you're already 10 steps ahead. The quiet after that phone call was worse than any shouting. It sat in my stomach like a stone. She won't see it coming. Our wedding anniversary rolled around. For 34 years, we had the same ritual. No fancy trips, just a quiet dinner at home, a bottle of that cheap red wine we loved when we were broke and in love, a handwritten note. That year, I set the table like always. I lit the candles. I made his favorite meatloaf. I put on a dress I hadn't worn in years. And I waited. The clock ticked. 7 p.m., 8, 9. The meatloaf hardened into a brick. The candles drowned in their own wax. I saw my reflection in the dark window, a woman in a nice dress, waiting for a ghost. He came home after 11. No flowers, no card. He didn't even glance at the table. He smelled like airport and someone else's perfume. He muttered, "Long day." He kissed the top of my head like I was the family dog and walked upstairs. I sat there until midnight, staring at 2 full plates, a celebration for a marriage that had already ended. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I saw his side of the bed was empty. I crept downstairs. The floorboard on the 3rd step groaned under my weight. His office door was cracked open. And I heard his voice, low, urgent, the voice he used for big deals. "No," he said to someone on the phone. "She still has no clue." I stopped breathing. She still has no clue. He wasn't talking about a burnt meatloaf. He was talking about the plan, the big one. I backed away, a ghost in my own home. I didn't cry. I got very still, and then I got very clear. The next morning, Emma found me in the kitchen. She poured herself orange juice but didn't drink it. "Mom," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I heard something." My heart dropped to my feet.
Michael was in Dad's office yesterday. I walked past. He said he was ready to take over everything, that Dad should stop stalling. I just nodded. I didn't need her to repeat it. The pieces snapped together with a sound I could almost hear. Michael wasn't waiting to inherit the company. He was forcing a takeover, a hostile takeover of his father's life's work. And Richard wasn't stopping him. He was helping. I looked at my daughter's worried face. I thought about all the years I spent being quiet, being graceful, holding everything together. And I realized my silence hadn't made me strong. It had made me invisible. They were handing my whole life, every piece of it, to my son, and I wasn't even in the room. A storm was coming. I could feel the pressure change in the air, but I didn't know the storm would start with a phone call at dawn, and I didn't know that call would be the beginning of the end for both of them. The call came at 5:17 a.m. I remember because the digital clock on the nightstand glowed red in the dark. The house was that deep blue quiet that comes just before sunrise. The phone rang. Once. Twice. I knew. I don't know how, but I knew before I picked it up. It was a doctor from Aspen, Colorado. His voice was calm, practiced. Richard had suffered a massive heart attack at his private lodge. He was gone. It was very quick, the doctor said. He didn't suffer. I thanked him. I hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt nothing. Just a vast, empty silence. The man I'd loved, the man who'd become a stranger, was gone. The fight was over before it even started. But I was wrong. The days that followed were a blur of black clothing and casserole dishes. My kitchen looked like a Costco deli exploded. People I hadn't seen in years hugged me and said, "You're so strong, Elaine." They meant I wasn't sobbing on the floor. What they didn't know was I'd mourned my husband years ago when he first looked through me like I was glass. Michael took charge. Of course he did. He planned the funeral at a black marble chapel in downtown Dallas. "The press will be there," he told me, not asking. "The board expects a certain presentation." The day of the funeral, I stood in the back. Emma held my hand so tight my fingers went numb. Michael stood at the podium, polished and cold as the marble walls. "My father was a visionary," he began. His voice didn't shake. "He taught me that the world doesn't give you power, you take it." He talked about legacy. He talked about strength. He didn't mention me, not once. I was the widow in black, a prop in his performance. The crowd of executives and investors applauded him. After the service, as people milled around with stale coffee, a man approached me, tall, sharp gray suit, a silver pin on his lapel. Mr. Hollings, Richard's lawyer. He didn't offer condolences. He reached into his jacket and handed me a thick, cream-colored envelope. My name, Elaine, was written on the front in Richard's messy scrawl. no stamp, no address. He just nodded once and melted back into the crowd. In the back of the black town car, Emma stared at the envelope in my lap like it was a snake. "What is it?" she whispered. I ran my finger over the raised letters of my name. "I don't know," I said, "but it's not a love letter." That night, alone in my walk-in closet, I finally opened it. My hands were steady. Inside wasn't an apology. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a map. A map of bank accounts I never knew existed, passwords, account numbers, instructions for a safe deposit box, and a single silver key taped to a piece of paper. At the bottom, in Richard's handwriting, "I was wrong. Finish it. -R." He didn't want my forgiveness. He was handing me a weapon, and the target was our son. The game wasn't over. It had just changed players, and for the first time, I was holding all the cards. The will reading was in a downtown Dallas skyscraper, all cold glass and shiny floors that echoed. It smelled like expensive coffee and fear. We sat in a conference room that felt like a refrigerator. Michael was already there, leaning back in his chair like he owned the world. He looked at me and smirked. "Let's make this quick," he said. "We all know how this ends." Emma sat beside me. I held her hand under the table. It was ice cold. Mr. Hollings, the lawyer, walked in. No smile. He opened a leather binder. He started reading the legal words. Then he got to the parts that mattered. First, Michael. The trust established for Michael Caldwin was dissolved by the deceased 6 months ago. Michael's chair squeaked as he sat forward. "What? That's impossible. That's my money."
Mr. Hollings didn't blink. "The revocation is notarized and filed. Would you like to see the document?" Michael's face turned the color of putty. He just stared. Then Emma. Richard left her the summer house in Stowe, Vermont, and a full scholarship fund. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She never asked for anything. Then Mr. Hollings said my name. "To my wife, Elaine Caldwell, I leave the entirety of my remaining estate, including controlling interest in Caldwell Technologies, all real property, and a direct monetary transfer of $45 million. The room was dead silent. Then Michael exploded. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. "What?" he shouted. The word bounced off the walls. "This is a joke. She manipulated him. He was old. He was sick." He pointed a shaking finger at me. "You did this." Mr. Hollings stayed calm. "Your father was of sound mind. He filed a video affidavit. The changes are legal and binding." But Michael wasn't listening. He was in a rage. He marched over to me. Mr. Hollings had just slid a physical check across the table, the ceremonial one. It sat in front of me. Michael looked down at me. His eyes weren't my son's eyes. They were a stranger's eyes, full of hate. He snatched the check from the table. He held it up for the whole room to see. Then he reached into his suit jacket. He pulled out a matchbook. He struck a match. He lit the corner of the $45 million check on fire right in front of me. The flame caught, orange and hungry. The paper curled and blackened. The smell of burnt ink filled the air. Emma gasped. Michael smiled, dropping the ashes on the polished floor. "There," he hissed at me, triumph in his voice. "Now no one gets it." I looked up at him, and I smiled back, a small, quiet smile, because he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd played his card, and it was the wrong one. "Michael," I said, my voice calm in the stunned quiet, "that was a photocopy." His smile froze. Mr. Hollings nodded. "The official transfer cleared digitally 4 days ago. That was a courtesy copy." Michael stared at the ashes on the floor. He looked at his hands. He looked at me. The triumph in his eyes died, replaced by a slow dawning horror. He finally understood. He hadn't burned my future. He'd just burned his last bridge right in front of everyone who mattered. The match was his, but the fire from here on out was mine. After the will reading, I didn't go home. I drove. I had a key burning a hole in my purse, the little silver key from Richard's envelope. I drove to a nondescript building off Central Expressway. No sign, just an address, a vault facility. Inside, it was quiet as a tomb. A woman behind bulletproof glass checked my ID, nodded, and led me down a hall lined with metal doors. Box 409. My hands weren't even shaking. The key turned smooth. The door opened with a sigh of cold air. Inside were 3 things. 1, a small black hard drive. 2, a leather-bound book, old and worn. 3, another even thicker envelope. I opened the envelope first. More pages in Richard's handwriting. But this wasn't a map. It was a confession, a desperate one. "Elaine," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and Michael has shown his hand. I was wrong about him. I thought his hunger was ambition. It's just greed. He'll hollow out everything I built and sell the shell." He wrote about secret accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell companies in Delaware. He'd been moving assets for a year, hiding them from Michael's audit. He changed the corporate bylaws, giving the majority voting power to a private trust, a trust in my name. "He's been stealing from the company," Richard wrote. "Small amounts at first, then bigger, to fund his lifestyle, to make bad investments. I covered for him. I was ashamed. I thought I could fix him. I was wrong." The last page was instructions. "The hard drive has everything. Bank records, wire transfers, his forged signatures. The ledger is my personal record of every mistake I ever made, including the ones with you. Use it. Don't protect him anymore. Protect what's left. Protect Emma. Protect yourself." I sat on the cold floor of the vault, the papers in my lap. I didn't feel angry at Richard. I felt a crushing sadness. He'd built an empire but failed to build a son, and now, from the grave, he was asking me to clean up the mess. The hard drive was the weapon, the ledger was the shield, and the check Michael burned was just the first move in a game he didn't even know we were playing. I put everything in my tote bag. I walked out. The Texas sun was blinding. I had all the power now, and the only thing left to decide was how to use it. 2 weeks later, the lawsuit arrived, a thick packet of papers delivered by a stern-looking man. Michael was suing me to overturn the will. He claimed undue influence. He said I'd taken advantage of a sick old man. I showed it to Emma. She read the first page and her face fell. "He's really doing it," she whispered. "He has to," I said. "It's the only move he has left." I called Mr. Hollings. "What do we do?" "We go to court," he said, "and we end this." The media got the story. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire widow and heir battle. Son sues mom over fortune." My quiet street in Highland Park suddenly had news vans parked on it. I didn't give interviews. I didn't come to the door. I pulled the curtains and made tea. My silence drove them crazy. It drove Michael crazy, too. He gave angry statements on the courthouse steps, playing the wounded heir. The day of the hearing, Michael arrived with a team of 5 lawyers in Armani suits. They looked like a wall of money. I walked in alone. Just me in a simple navy dress and my tote bag with the hard drive and ledger inside. Emma walked behind me, a silent pillar of strength. The courtroom was small. The judge was a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes. Michael's lawyer told a story of a frail Richard confused and manipulated by his gold-digging wife in his final days. He painted me as a monster. Michael sat at the table, nodding, looking grief-stricken. Then it was our turn. Mr. Hollings stood. "Your Honor," he said, "the defense would like to submit new evidence and play a video recording." The judge nodded. Mr. Hollings plugged in the hard drive. He pulled up a file. It wasn't just the financial records. It was a video. Richard, sitting in his study at the lodge, he looked into the camera. He looked tired, but his eyes were clear as glass. "If this is playing," Richard said, "I'm dead. And if Michael is challenging the will, then he's done exactly what I knew he would." He took a deep breath. "Michael, you're not ready. You were never ready. You see money, not a legacy. You see a throne, not a responsibility." He turned his head as if looking right at me. "Elaine, I'm sorry for all of it. You were the only one who ever really saw the whole board. It's yours now. Do what I didn't have the courage to do." The video ended. The room was stone quiet. Michael's lawyer started stammering. This is authentic," Mr. Hollings said. "Time-stamped, verified by experts, as are the financial records showing Michael Caldwell's systematic embezzlement from the company he claims to love." The judge didn't need long. She looked at Michael, then at me. "The petition to overturn the will is denied," she said. "Furthermore, given the evidence of financial malfeasance, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation." Game, set, match. Michael didn't look at me as he walked out. He just looked broken. He'd gambled everything on a lie, and he'd lost. Losing in court didn't humble Michael. It made him desperate. He went after the company next. He called an emergency board meeting. He told the old guard directors I was a clueless widow who'd run Caldwell Tech into the ground. The day of the meeting, Emma met me in the lobby of the corporate tower. She wore a sharp black suit. "You ready?" she asked. "I've been ready for 30 years," I said. We walked into the boardroom together, 12 powerful men and one woman, all around a huge mahogany table. They all looked up. Michael was at the head. He tried to stand to take control. I didn't let him. I walked to the other end of the table. I placed my tote bag down. I didn't sit. "I'll make this quick," I said. My voice didn't shake. "My name is Elaine Caldwell. I own 52% of the voting shares in this company. My husband's shares transferred to me." I pulled out the trust documents from Mr. Hollings and laid them on the table. "Effective immediately, I am assuming the role of chairwoman. My first act is to appoint my daughter, Emma Caldwell, to the vacant board seat her father designated for her." Michael slammed his hand on the table. "This is outrageous. She's a child. She knows nothing." Emma spoke then. Her voice was calm, clear. "I know the difference between leading and looting, Michael. That's more than you've ever known." The room was tense. The directors looked back and forth between us, a family war playing out at the boardroom table. One of the older directors, Frank, who'd known Richard from the garage days, cleared his throat. He looked at me. "Elaine, what's your vision for the company?" I looked right back at him. "To stop the bleeding, to rebuild with integrity, to make it mean something again instead of just being a piggy bank for my son." I looked at Michael. "You're removed from all operational roles. You can keep your title if you want the empty name, but you don't touch the money, you don't talk to the press, you sit in your office and you stay quiet." His face was purple with rage. "You can't do this to me." I just did. Meeting adjourned. I didn't fire him. Firing him would have been a mercy. It would have set him free. I left him trapped in a gilded cage of his own making with a title and no power, the most painful punishment for a man like him. In the weeks that followed, a strange peace settled over my life. The news vans left, the lawyer's call stopped. I sold the big, cold house in Highland Park. It was just a museum of a life that wasn't mine anymore. I bought a bright, modern condo in the Arts District, my first home that was just mine. No ghosts in the hallways, no memories in the furniture. With the money, I started the Caldwell Foundation, not a vanity project, a lifeline. We helped women who had been financially blindsided by divorce, by death, by greedy family members. We gave them lawyers, accountants, and a community that understood. We didn't just give handouts, we gave hand-ups. Emma threw herself into it, but she had her own ideas. One afternoon, she came over to my condo with her laptop. "Mom, look at this." She showed me a website she'd built, Silent Signal. "It's for whistleblowers," she said, her eyes bright. "People who see wrong things in companies but are too scared to speak up. We give them legal protection, a platform, a voice." My quiet girl was building an army. I'd never been more proud. Meanwhile, Michael faded. He kept his fancy office, but no one took his calls. He was a ghost in the building. I heard he spent his days at the country club, drinking and complaining to anyone who would listen, but his audience was getting smaller. I thought the fight was finally over. I thought we could just move on. Then a package arrived at my condo door, a plain brown box, no return address. Inside, packed in bubble wrap, was a framed photograph. It was a professional quality picture of the moment Michael burned the check. The flame was caught mid-leap, the paper curling. It was framed under sleek glass. At the bottom, a small brass plaque was engraved. It read, "A lesson in arrogance." It wasn't from Michael. This was too cold, too calculated. This was from someone who wanted me to know they were watching and that they approved. Under the frame was a single USB drive, no note. My heart hammered against my ribs. The game wasn't over. There was still another player. I stared at the USB drive like it was a live scorpion. Who sent this? A friend? A foe? Someone from the company? My hands were slick with sweat. I called Emma. "Can you come over? Now." She heard the fear in my voice and was there in 20 minutes. I showed her the box, the framed photo, the drive. I don't know what's on it. I'm scared. Emma, my tech-savvy daughter, didn't hesitate. "We'll open it on an old laptop, one that's not connected to anything." She had a spare from college. She booted it up, slid the drive in. One file. A video. It wasn't Richard. It was security camera footage, grainy, black and white. It showed a sleek, modern bar, and there was Michael leaning across a table talking intently to a man. The man had his back to the camera. We turned up the volume. Michael's voice was slurred, drunk. "Briah thinks she's so smart. She has the papers, the shares, but the old man was paranoid. He had off-book assets, things not even Hollings knows about, foreign accounts, art, cash, a safety net in case everything went south." The other man's voice was low, muffled. "Where?" Michael tapped his nose, a grotesque drunken gesture. "That's the billion-dollar question. But I've got a lead. The old man's pilot. He flew him to Zurich, to Grand Cayman, a dozen times in the last 2 years for meetings. But there were no meetings. He was moving something or visiting something. What are you going to do?" Michael's face hardened on the screen. "I'm going to find it. It's mine. It was always meant to be mine. And when I do, her little foundation, her little empire of gratitude, it'll vanish. Poof." The video ended. Emma and I sat in stunned silence. Richard had another secret? A bigger one? "The pilot," Emma whispered. "Jimmy Ruiz. Dad trusted him for 20 years. A new fear, cold and sharp, stabbed through me. Michael wasn't just licking his wounds. He was digging, he was hunting, and if he really was another fortune, a hidden one, and he found it, he could come roaring back. The war for Richard's legacy wasn't about the past anymore. It was about a secret he'd taken to the grave, and Michael was determined to dig it up. I had to find Jimmy Ruiz, the pilot, before Michael did. But I couldn't just call him. If Michael was watching him, a call would tip him off.
I remembered Jimmy loved old planes. He volunteered at the Kavanaugh Flight Museum in Addison. Maybe I could run into him there. The next Saturday, I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses like a silly spy. I walked through the museum hangars past beautiful old warbirds, and there he was, polishing the propeller of a bright yellow Piper Cub.
"Jimmy?" I said. He turned, squinting. Then his face broke into a warm smile. "Mrs. C, wow, it's good to see you." His smile faded. I'm so sorry about Richard." "Thank you, Jimmy." I took a breath. "I need to ask you something, and it might be dangerous." His smile vanished. He put down his rag. "Okay." "The trips to Zurich, to the Caymans, in the last 2 years, what was Richard doing?" Jimmy looked down. He shifted his weight. "He made me sign an NDA, Mrs. C, a serious one." "Jimmy," I said, my voice soft, "Michael is looking for what he was doing. He thinks there's hidden money. If he finds it, he'll use it to hurt me, to hurt Emma, to destroy everything Richard actually cared about at the end." Jimmy rubbed his neck. He looked around the empty hangar. He made a decision. "It wasn't money," he said, his voice low. "It was a clinic in Zurich, the best in the world." "A clinic?" My mind raced. Was he sick? He never said. "Not for him," Jimmy said. He met my eyes. "For you, Mrs. C." I felt the world tilt. "What?" "2 years ago, you had that scare, the breast cancer biopsy." I remembered. It was benign, a huge relief. Richard had held me, said it was the worst day of his life. "It scared him," Jimmy said, "really scared him. He said he'd spent his life building walls around his money, but no walls around your health. So he invested. He funded a research wing at this clinic, specializing in early detection and treatment for what you had a scare about. It was in your name, Elaine, a whole division, the Caldwell Early Detection Initiative. He'd fly over to check on the research, meet the doctors. He said if it ever came back, you'd have the best shot in the world, and no bill would ever come." Tears blurred my vision. The hidden asset wasn't cash. It was a castle in the sky, built just for me, a secret monument to a fear he'd never voiced. "The paperwork," I choked out. "Where is it?" "With a lawyer in Zurich, a Dr. Hartman. Richard said if anything ever happened to him, Dr. Hartman would contact you. I guess he hasn't yet." Michael was hunting for a treasure chest, but the real treasure was a guardian angel my husband had quietly built for me, and Michael would never understand its value in a million years. I flew to Zurich with Emma. We met Dr. Hartman in a calm, quiet office overlooking a lake. He was a kind man with gentle eyes. He confirmed everything Jimmy said. He showed me the paperwork. Richard had donated tens of millions to establish and endow the research initiative. It was legally in my name. I had the right to guide its future. He was very adamant. His one condition was that it never be publicly associated with the Caldwell Tech name. He wanted it to be purely about the science, about giving you and women like you a fighting chance. It was the most selfless thing he'd ever done, and he'd hidden it, not from me, but from the world that would have turned it into a PR stunt. When we got back to Dallas, there was a message waiting from Michael. His voice on my voicemail was frantic, angry. "I know you went to Zurich. What did you find? That's my money, Mom. You hear me? Mine. I'll expose you. I'll tell everyone you're siphoning off estate money." He'd been having me followed. The paranoia was eating him alive. I didn't call back. Instead, I had Mr. Hollings send him a 1-page letter with a copy of the clinic's founding document, highlighted with a line stating its purpose: for the early detection and treatment of breast cancer, established for the benefit of Elaine Caldwell. A week later, the district attorney's office called. The investigation into Michael's embezzlement was moving forward. They had enough evidence to press charges. They asked if I, as the majority owner of the company he stole from, wanted to pursue it. I thought about the little boy who loved dinosaurs. I thought about the man who burned a check to hurt me. I took a deep, painful breath. Yes, I said, pursue it. Sometimes love means holding on, sometimes it means letting go, and sometimes it means allowing someone to face the consequences of the person they've chosen to become. The arrest was quiet, no dramatic raid. His lawyer negotiated a surrender. I saw a single photo on the local news website, Michael head down in a suit, walking into the county courthouse. He looked small, he looked old. He was charged with grand larceny and fraud. He pled guilty to a lesser charge. He was facing years, but his lawyer cut a deal. 2 years in a minimum security prison, a lifetime of a felony record. I didn't go to the sentencing. Emma didn't either. Some goodbyes you have to say alone, in your own heart.
While he was gone, I got to work. I merged the resources of the Caldwell Foundation with the research in Zurich. We created the Caldwell Promise, free advanced screenings for women who couldn't afford it, funded by the endowment Richard left. We saved lives, real, actual lives. Emma's silent signal took off. She helped expose a polluter in Houston. She was named to a 30 under 30 list. She wasn't Richard's daughter or my daughter in the press. She was Emma Caldwell, Force for Good. One afternoon, I was packing up the last few things from a storage unit, old photo albums, childhood drawings. I found one of Michael's, a crayon drawing of our family, 4 stick figures with huge smiles under a giant yellow sun. On the back, in my handwriting, Michael, age 5, says this is us in heaven because everyone is always happy here. I sat on the concrete floor and cried, not for the man in prison, for the little boy who just wanted a happy family. I'd failed him. Richard had failed him. We'd built him a palace and given him a soul of cardboard. I put the drawing in a special folder, not to forget, but to remember where it all started, before it all went wrong. 2 years passed. Michael was released. I heard through a mutual acquaintance he'd moved to Fort Worth. He got a job selling cars, a long, long way from the corner office. I was in my condo, potting orchids on the balcony, when the intercom buzzed. It was my doorman. Mrs. Caldwell, there's a gentleman here to see you. A Michael Caldwell. My heart stopped. The watering can trembled in my hand. Send him up, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I opened the door. He stood there. He looked thinner. His expensive suit was gone, replaced with jeans and a plain T-shirt. His eyes, which had always been so hard, looked tired, soft. Mom, he said. Michael? We stood there, the chasm of years and betrayal between us. Can I come in? He asked. I nodded, stepping back. He walked in, looking around at my sunny, simple space. It's nice, he said. It's home, I replied. We sat on the sofa. Silence stretched. He started, then stopped. He looked at his hands. I got your letters in prison. I never wrote back. I couldn't. I had written him every month, not long letters, just a line or two. Thinking of you, hope you're okay. It's raining here. He read them all, he said, his voice thick. Every one. He finally looked at me. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. The check, the lawsuit, the stealing, for being a terrible son. I was so angry at Dad, at the world. I took it all out on you. The apology hung in the air. It was what I'd waited decades to hear, but now that it was here, it didn't fix the broken things. It just acknowledged they were broken. Thank you for saying that, Michael, I said softly. Is it too late?
he asked, and for a second he was that little boy again, afraid he'd broken his favorite toy beyond repair. It's too late for some things, I said honestly. We can't go back, but it's not too late for you to build a new life, a good one, an honest one. He nodded, tears in his eyes now. I'm trying. The job, it's okay. I like the cars. It's simple. Simple is good, I said. He didn't stay long. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for anything. As he left, he paused at the door. Mom, the thing in Zurich, Jimmy finally told me what it was after I got out. He shook his head, a sad, small smile on his face. He really did love you, didn't he, in his own messed up way. I never understood that kind of love. Maybe you will one day, I said. He left. I watched the door close. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt a quiet, deep release, like a wound that had finally stopped throbbing and could begin, slowly, to scar over. The grand opening of the Caldwell Promise Community Health Center in East Dallas was on a bright Saturday. We didn't put it in a fancy hospital. We put it in a neighborhood that needed it. There were balloons, a local band, and food trucks. Hundreds of people came, women from the foundation, community leaders, doctors from Zurich. Emma was on the small stage giving a speech. She talked about access. She talked about hope. She was a natural leader, my girl. I stood off to the side, watching. A woman touched my arm. She was about my age, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Mrs. Caldwell, she said. My name is Rosa. I had my first mammogram here last week because of you. They found something early, so early. They say I'll be just fine. She took my hands in hers. Her eyes were full of tears. Thank you, she whispered. You saved my life. In that moment, every boardroom battle, every tear, every moment of silent planning was worth it. This was the legacy, not a company on the stock exchange, but a woman named Rosa who got to go home to her family. Later, Emma found me. She looped her arm through mine. You did good, Mom. We did good, I said, squeezing her arm. I looked around at the bustling, happy center, at the faces of the nurses and patients. This was my family now, bigger, messier, and more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. The past was a closed book, a painful one, with some beautiful pages in the beginning, but the story I was writing now, it was my own, and the next chapter was just beginning. Today, I'm sitting in my small home office. The sun is setting over the Dallas skyline, painting the clouds pink and orange. On my desk is a simple frame. On one side, that old crayon drawing from Michael, age 5. On the other side, a recent photo. It's of me, Emma, and Rosa, the woman from the health center, standing together at the opening day, laughing. That's my whole story right there in one frame, the dream of a happy family, the painful reality that followed, and the new chosen family that was built from the pieces, stronger and more meaningful than I ever dreamed possible. My story started with a fire, a match held in anger to destroy, but it ends with a different kind of light, the soft, steady light of a health center on a city street, the bright light in my daughter's eyes as she changes the world, the warm light of a peace I built for myself. They thought my silence was weakness. They thought my calm was surrender, but they were wrong. Silence was my strategy. Calm was my strength, and in the end, the quiet ones are the ones who hear everything, see everything, and when we finally move, we change everything. If you take anything from my story, take this. Your strength is your own. It doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. Your peace is worth fighting for, even if the battle is a quiet one. And no one, not a husband, not a son, not anyone can ever take away your power to write your own ending. You are stronger than you know. Now go write your next chapter. I'll be right here, cheering you on in the quiet. And that's the story of how a quiet grandmother from Texas took back her life, her power, and her legacy. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclamation. If you're facing your own quiet battle, remember Elaine. Remember that your calm is a superpower. Share this with someone who needs that reminder today. Come join our little family. Subscribe so you don't miss the next pot of tea. Tell me in the comments, what's one small, quiet thing you're going to do for yourself this week? Take care of yourselves. Until next time.